Hans. I'll focus on basically two issues in my short presentation. First, a little bit about the movement itself and about its history, and then perhaps the most interesting issue here is the banning process of the Nordic resistance movement in Finland. It was banned just a few months ago, actually. So it is a very recent case, and I suppose quite interesting case for the other Nordic chapters as well. Well, the Finnish chapter of the Nordic resistance movement was founded in 2008, so it's actually a relatively old organization. Already far-right organizations in Finland are typically not last very many years. There are a few exceptions to that. And interesting also that when it was founded in 2008, actually the first contact with the Nordic resistance movement was made via American organization, the Order. The founder of the Finnish organization actually was in contact with one Order member, and he then suggested that they should actually take contact with the Swedes, and then after that they founded an organizational chapter in Finland as well. The Finnish Nordic resistance movement chapter became quite soon actually basically the most important neo-Nazi group in Finland, with also most international contacts, most visible also. They have been in the news at least for the last 5 years, constantly in the news. They started as a very small organization. By 2014 or so, they had something like 20 members, but then started to grow during the past 5 years, and last time during the past few years, and they have had something like around 100 activists, and this does not even include all the supporting members. They have quite a variety of backgrounds, of course, because it's grown to such extent, but quite many of them still had some kind of a subcultural background. So quite many of them have been in the skinhead movement for several years already, before even the founding of the organization, or they have some other kind of subcultural background. Finnish chapter has been very active in creating connections with foreign organizations. Of course, they have had close collaboration with the Swedes. They sometimes train together, go to each other's demonstrations and so on. But they also quite early on had very close connections with the National Action Organization in the United Kingdom, which was actually later banned also as a terrorist organization. And interesting also that for the banning case is that they also shared ideas about how to actually respond to the ban and how to react, how to continue one's activities after the organization is banned. Well, some other relevant connections for the Finnish NRM are in Germany, Dritte and also NPD, and especially its youth organization. They have been in Finland quite often. Last time, actually in last December at least, Dritte leader was speaking in Helsinki. Greek Golden Dawn has been, of course, an exemplary organization for quite many of far-right groups in Europe and even worldwide. Kasapound is a kind of interesting case for the Finnish group because they had actually connection with the Kasapound even before they founded the Nordic Resistance Movement organization in Finland. And this is because one of the key members who is organizing Kasapound's cultural activities and is currently leading the Solidarity Front organization, which supports Syria, is actually half Finnish person. Regarding the violent activities of the Nordic resistance movement in Finland, one should say that it has been to some extent smaller scale than in what has happened in Sweden. There has been no known terrorist plots or anything like that, and even also violent clashes or so on have been to some extent smaller, and it has not been that continuous, even if it used to happen almost every year. Most of these violent activities have been in the context of the demonstrations or street activism by the Nordic resistance movement. As Ture also referred to, they tend to refer to these activities as some kind of a self-defense activities, actions which typically happen after some kind of a provocation. Although one has to say that bar is quite low to start an attack, so very little provocation seems to have been followed by some kind of an attack. Of the most notable violent attacks, there have been 2013 here in Jyväskylä, when library stabbing case, which started after one book presentation. Nordic resistance movement members went to the local library, and then one stabbed one guardsman there. And then 2015 kind of follow-up to this case was riot and assault at the shopping mall here in Jyväskylä as well. Those were the same persons who were actually involved, both sides, in that attack. And then 2016 there was in Helsinki a brutal assault, which also later the victim of the assault died, as Ture mentioned also. And this was an important case because this kind of led to the process of banning the Nordic resistance movement in Finland. And the court justified basically the banning of the organization by recurring violent attacks of the Nordic resistance movement, and also how they praised their violent activities. They looked like they celebrated and accepted the violent activities, for example, this brutal assault in 2016. And the ban was last month confirmed by the Supreme Court in Finland. So what are the consequences of the ban for the Nordic resistance movement in Finland? As Chris actually said about the Kristallnacht 2019 activities, the Finnish Nordic resistance movement still seem to have some kind of a link and even collaboration with the whole Nordic resistance movement, Scandinavian or Nordic movement, and they took part in these 2019 attacks, vandalism and so on, doing some kind of graffitis at the synagogues and so on. And as a kind of proof of coordination, I suppose this was ordered by the Swedish Nordic resistance movement leader by Simon Lindberg. But so far there hasn't been actually not very much sort of violent reactions to the ban. They have not resorted to violence to some extent than previously. During the court process, there have been only just minor clashes at demonstrations against their political opponents or anti-fascist or whoever was demonstrating against them. After the ban, Nordic resistance movement members have in Finland founded several new organizations kind of to circumvent the ban, and some of these organizations have been investigated, and I think they are under evaluation by the prosecutor now if they actually illegally are continuing the activities of terminated associations and breaching the Finnish Associations Act. And probably few of these groups will be banned later in Finland. That seems, at least at the moment, quite likely, because it's quite obvious that they are continuing the activities of this banned organization. How they will then act after this ban? Well, this founding of the new organization seems to be one part of their post-ban strategy, and they have indeed founded several organizations which actually suggests that they would kind of create a more decentralized organizational form, which would be then eventually much more difficult to ban, or even to follow or control by the police. And something Ture also mentioned, I think, was that some Finnish members have been active in the so-called accelerationist networks. Some members have supported this as a viable option for future activism, and some have been active already before the ban, starting something like 2016 or so, within the Iron March forum, and some have later joined some of the successor organization of the ATMFFN division and so on. So they have been reacted to kind of to that way also to the ban. So they see that there's no more avenue for the political activism or the organizational strategy. They should do some other things. Well, as a consequence of the ban, they have obviously much less resources at their disposal, as the assets were frozen by the court and the website was closed. This shows also in the activism, it's much more smaller scale right now. And also the number of members, they have lost quite many members since the ban. Some older activists have left the movement, at least it looks like that. Just a final note that yesterday was in Helsinki published by the Finnish Security Police the latest national security review, which mentioned that individuals or small groups supporting radical Islamist or far-right ideology pose the greatest terrorist threat in Finland, and they made it quite obvious that this referred to the online activities, international networks of these groups, and I suppose it partly applies to what the Nordic resistance movement has done in Finland after they were banned. So, thank you.